Hello and welcome back for match 2 with Rug Delver against Miracles. We are playing a list with Stifles this time. To make room, we've cheated a bit on our red card count. We've gone down to 5 removal spells main deck, trimmed a spell snare, and cut the True Name Nemesis. So this is a very combo and creature light control antagonistic version. A lot more stack interaction, a lot less board interaction. And in the sideboard, we've gotten rid of the True Name Nemesis and the Ancient Grudge and replaced them with Crows and Grips. So this is sort of as spells and enchantments antagonistic as I think you can reasonably make a Rug Delver deck. So let's see whether we can beat Miracles with 3-pair. 3-pair does not play in Magic or Poker, so we're going to mulligan this one. And this is the sort of hand that you hate seeing with Rug Delver. It looks like it does something and it really doesn't. And, you know, you can play Magic, but at no point are you actually advancing the game state in a favorable manner. So, Jesus, our opponent just full up on cards that, you know, produce mana. Tundra, Tundra, Island, Strand, Strand. Our Wasteland is not going to be good here. Neither is our Daze. So, we're going to get a Volcanic Island and brainstorm with that. We neither want this Bolt nor this Wasteland. We actually now want neither Wasteland. So, we're happy to keep up our, oops, undo. We're happy to keep up our spells since they help gain threshold for our Nimble Mongoose. So our opponent sitting on a zillion lands, which is basically the green light to, oh right, also Plow Force. So 4 lands, Plow Force, something. So we can get Threshold here. And we can actually get a Stifle to okay, so we have Daze Delver available. So our Delver is going to get plowed. I think we just want to hit for 3 with Mongoose as early as possible, which means going upstairs with Bolt right away. And sending in Mongoose. So we're going to get plowed on end step. And so we've got Stifle for Terminus and Daze for Jace. So I'm actually pretty happy just passing back here. Yeah, we can use all of our cards. Didn't need to brainstorm last turn because there was nothing really that we were looking for. We had 2 pieces of interaction, and now we have 3 with Force of Will. So I'm fine floating a blue mana and dazing this, and then stifling his fetch land. And now our brainstorm has more value. We draw another Stifle. Stifle just quite alright against miracles. Just turns on your dazes when you least expect it. So we're going to cast Brainstorm, hit land, and Brainstorm, play. Yeah, so I'm actually fine passing back here with 2 pieces of Disruption up. Playing out Delver would mean turning off Force of Will plus Stifle, which isn't really what I'm interested in doing. So next turn we're going to redraw our Brainstorm and shuffle away our land. So yeah, our opponent, Miracle's Terminus, we stifle the trigger. And now this screen won't go away, that's cool. Yep, got it. So we shuffle away the land on top of our deck, and we can cast Brainstorm, see more lands, and I think we just want to pass back. Our opponent needs a Brainstorm and... yeah, our opponent needs to have a Brainstorm here. And doesn't, so Nimble Mongoose goes the distance. Which is, you know, a way that you can win is your opponent just thinks that the game is about mana stability, and you can just come out of the gates with a turn 3/3/3. And Stifle, as you see, did excellent work there, cutting off mana where it was important, stifling Terminus, really just played both roles really well. So, if we board in the same, these 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we're able to cut all of these cards that only really interact meaningfully with Jace. And from there, it's a little more difficult. Right, like, what do you cut? I think that Pithing Needle is actually pretty bad in a Stifle deck. I think that at the point where you have Stifle, you're fighting over cards that aren't Sensei's Divining Top, and you're actually interested in letting them use a lot of their mana to just rearrange cards. since you're playing a more tempo-oriented game. So, given that snare is still fine, I think that cutting a Tarmogoyf and 2 probes are probably fine. I think cutting a Wasteland is less okay when you're on the Stifle plan. Although I've actually really liked probe. It's harder to board in more cards when you have a better main deck against Miracles, is the thing. Like, obviously these 5 are pretty easy cuts. Boarding below 12 threats isn't great. I think it's reasonable to cut probably a Force of Will, not board in the Pithing Needle, and cut a Wasteland. But I'm really iffy on the Wasteland and the Force of Will. But part of the problem, so to speak, is that our deck is just very well set up against Miracles now, and so we have fewer bad cards. So, we are going to keep this hand with a Tarmogoyf and 2 Force of Wills. So we're going to play a land, cast Probe, and our opponent is heavy on the Miracles. So they're interested in, so they've got Terminus, CB, Council, Brainstorm, Volk. And we draw the best possible card, the card that I wanted to draw, which is Stifle. And now we can just play a game where we have lands and spells to cast and our opponent does not. Our opponent draws their island. So now we've got some decisions. Our opponent isn't in a position to cast their Council's Judgment. And they need this Arid Mesa for white. So if we cast Tarmogoyf here, which I think we have to do, we're still very committed to stifling Arid Mesa. Which means Force of Willing the counterbalance pitching Force of Will. Okay, so now we're not able to cut him off of white. I think we're actually just going to let this resolve and Crows and Grip it. We're doing this main phase because it actually gets 2 card types in the graveyard. Our opponent reveals Snapcaster Mage, so we now have perfect information again. But our plan now becomes cut him off of Terminus. So he has Terminus. Oh, he has 1 unknown card. Terminus, Judgment, Snapcaster, 1 card. Have we seen it? Do we know anything about it? Okay. So it's probably not a land. I don't think we can let this resolve, and I don't think we can let his Snapcaster Mage resolve. And then so we're pitching Stifle and Brainstorm and piercing his Judgment. And trying to strand his Terminuses. Ooh. Okay, well we have to... That was a rough one for us to not have seen. So we're sort of committing to forcing that, and then we pierce the Brainstorm that he... or the Plow that he flashes back. So we're gonna have to draw pretty well to get out of this. I can see that being alright. So he has Terminus, Council's Judgment, Snapcaster. If he doesn't draw a land, any Snapcasters, we can pierce. If he Council's Judgments, we can pierce. So yeah, we just play a land, play our Tarmogoyf, and try and draw Brainstorm next turn. Although, we're actually just not going to get to draw Brainstorm next turn. Okay, so we get to pierce this and attack again. Our opponent's still jammed up with Terminuses in their hand. Unfortunately, we can't wasteland them off of double white. We can wasteland them off of Jace mana, sort of, which is important. Like they have to have peeled Jace plus land in the 2 cards that we don't know. This is also a terrible part of the Moto interface. Oh, you do get to see it. It has 1 vote. I rescind that. It's just not obvious at all. It should be, there should be like an arrow or something. 1 vote is like, I also vote for that. Okay, so our opponent's going to have something pretty strong to beat this. So they're going to have to find top in these 3 cards, is basically what's going to happen. He's going to put back both Terminuses, and then he has to have top with this mana, and then Terminus with the 3rd. Ooh, he could also have Brainstorm. Gross. Brainstorm the 2nd into Brainstorm the 3rd. Rather unfortunate. Played around spot removal, lost to 2 cards that we hadn't seen. We also don't have a way to burn him out. On the upside, he can't cast Force of Will, and he can't cast... Can't cast Force of Will, can't activate a fetch land. Okay, so didn't choose to reveal. I think we just have to take Delver, given what we know. And let him draw his other Terminus, I think. Yeah. So now he doesn't have a known card on top of his deck. He can't shuffle with his Misty. Ugh. Okay. So he's drawing a dead card here. We're drawing a dead card here. We are very happy to wasteland in this spot, as now our opponent can't cast Jace, which is pretty important. So we're just sort of building our hand up, and hopefully our opponent doesn't draw a Sensei's Divining Top at any point in the near future. Hopefully we can draw one of our Brainstorms soon. So what could be in his hand? Just a ton of removal? Okay. I am going to grip at the end of the turn. Ah, he's drawing fetch lands. That's what's up. Discards a Misty. Cool. Okay. Let's have a fight. I have 5 cards. I only really have 4 cards, but I definitely have 4 cards. So he's snapcasting a brainstorm? No thank you. So like he can't cast Force of Will. He can't activate fetch lands. God knows how many lands he has in his hand. So we're going to pay. And we still have Stifle, Stifle Force, or Stifle Pierce Force. Or just Spell Pierce for L6 mana Terminus. And that is how you do it. Sometimes you just get to win against Miracles on turn 19. So, as you can see, a very Miracles antagonistic setup, although our opponent was incredibly unlucky not to draw Sensei's Divining Top in half their deck. Like, no top, no chase is really unlucky. However, we had a bunch of sweet ways to handle it. So, next up is figuring out how to balance between the two extremes that you just saw. So I'll be right back.